You know, when a president announces a new war, every single word is meticulously chosen. So in this explainer, we're going to break down one of those declarations, this one about Iran. We're going to go way beyond the headlines to see how a speech like this builds a case, justifies its actions, and sends a message of both extreme threat and, believe it or not, promise.
Right out of the gate, the speech begins with an incredibly blunt statement. There's no build-up, no easing into it. And that's a deliberate choice, right? It projects total decisiveness and leaves zero room for misinterpretation. From the very first sentence, the goal is to tell the world a line has been crossed and the consequences are already underway.
Okay, so the what is established. A new war has begun. Now, the speech has to immediately pivot to the why. How is this enormous action being framed for everyone watching?
Well, the core justification is framed as defense, not offense. The speech is really careful to position this as a response to imminent threats. And you have to notice the language used here to describe the adversary, a vicious group. This isn't just talk, it's a classic strategy to frame the enemy in a certain way to build public support for the conflict. This, of course, raises the most obvious question, one the speech seems to know is coming. With such a huge decision made, why this specific moment? Why now? So the announcement pivots again, from the what to the why, by laying out a very long history of grievances.
So to answer that why now question, the speech doesn't just point to one recent event. Nope. Instead, it constructs this whole narrative that stretches back nearly half a century. The argument is that this isn't some new conflict, but actually the final chapter of a really, really old one.
Now, what's so interesting here is how it lays out a pattern. The speech builds its case by listing these historical events, starting all the way back in 1979 with the embassy takeover. It's connecting the dots from there to Beirut, to the USS Cole, to the wars in Iraq, and then right up to recent attacks. It creates this long, unbroken story of aggression against the United States.
And then the case against Iran gets even broader. It's not just about direct conflict anymore. By linking the regime to proxy militias and specifically mentioning the October 7th attacks, the speech is trying to strip away any international legitimacy Iran might have. The message is clear. This isn't just a fight between two countries. It's a fight against a global sponsor of terror that also brutalizes its own people.
So, after that long list of grievances, the speech finally reveals the ultimate justification, the one red line that it claims has now officially been crossed: the pursuit of nuclear weapons.
And this just perfectly illustrates the core U.S. policy laid out in the speech. It's presented as a totally non-negotiable red line. The phrase, "they can never have a nuclear weapon," is repeated over and over. This is positioned as the absolute central pillar of the entire strategy.
Now, to show that other options were tried first, the speech brings up a prior military action, Operation Midnight Hammer. And just listen to the word they chose, obliterated. That is designed to sound final, and that's crucial for the next part of the argument, that the U.S. already tried a limited strike, and it just wasn't enough.
So this is the crucial link. The message is, look, that prior operation wasn't enough. According to the speech, despite that strike, despite warnings, the Iranian regime chose to defy the U.S. by trying to rebuild its nuclear program. And that defiance is presented as the direct catalyst for this new, much larger war. Okay, so with the justification all laid out, the speech shifts from the past to the future. What are the specific military goals of this whole operation? What are they actually trying to achieve?
The military plan is broken down into 4 pretty distinct objectives: take out the missiles, sink the Navy, cut off the proxies, and of course the main goal, end the nuclear program for good. It's really important to see how comprehensive this is. This isn't just about the nuclear threat anymore. It's a plan to basically dismantle Iran's ability to project any power in the region.
And this quote, wow, it just perfectly sums up the speech's tone. It is a message of absolute confidence, and it's aimed not just at Iran, but also at allies and any other potential adversaries watching around the world. The underlying point is one of unchallenged American military might.
All right, now the speech takes a really fascinating turn. It stops talking to the American public or the world and instead speaks directly to 2 very different audiences inside Iran.
The very first message is aimed right at Iran's security apparatus, the IRGC, the military, the police. The strategy here is classic psychological warfare, right? You try to drive a wedge between the soldiers and the regime by offering them a personal way out. This isn't a negotiation, it's a very stark choice.
And here is that choice, laid out in the plainest, most brutal terms possible. Lay down your arms, and you get total immunity. Keep fighting, and you will face certain death. The contrast is absolute, and it's designed to encourage mass defections and just minimize resistance on the ground.
Then, in this really remarkable pivot, the tone just completely shifts from threat to promise. After addressing the military, the speech turns directly to the Iranian people, and it reframes the whole invasion not as an attack on them, but as the beginning of their liberation.
And the instructions given are incredibly direct. First, a practical warning: stay inside, stay safe. But then a revolutionary command: when we are finished, take over your government. I mean, it's an extraordinary statement. It positions the U.S. not just as a military force, but as the catalyst for regime change from within, promising full backing for a popular uprising.
So that's the anatomy of the declaration: a 47-year justification, a clear set of military goals, and this dual message of threat and liberation aimed at the people of Iran. The speech projects absolute certainty about the military outcome. But the real question it leaves us with is what happens the day after? And how will an action this decisive end up reshaping the future of the entire Middle East for decades to come?